Hello, Sploresville. This morning, Andrew Manning, our longest-serving postman, delivered a postcard to the wrong address. And it was really wrong, like across the town kind of wrong. And that's because Andrew had memorized every single person's name in town and no longer looked at the addresses. But he was distracted today. Last night he'd found a little bump or a rash on his pinky finger, and he'd been thinking about it and worrying about it. Ever since last night, he'd just been focusing so much of his attention on his pinky finger. Even when he wasn't looking at it, he sensed it. He could feel every little change. And every time there was a tingle or a hotness on his finger, he didn't know whether that was normal, and he was just experiencing it because he was paying so much attention, or maybe something was really wrong. He realized that he needed a baseline, and so he vowed that he was going to pay deep attention to every part of his body in turn and take notes on how it felt. And that was why he ended up delivering a postcard to Amy Levatus that was meant for Amy Forbes Richardson. The postcard was from David Bach, Amy's childhood friend, and when she finally got it, she felt like it was fitting that it had originally been delivered to the wrong address. Their childhood had been full of misunderstandings. David was dyslexic, and that was known at an early age, and so he would leave school about an hour early and get tutelage designed to help him read. It wasn't talked about much, and Amy remembered asking her parents why he left school early, and remembers them saying that it's because he had special needs. They were such good friends you wouldn't have noticed, but Amy became very jealous of David's knees, his special knees that allowed him to leave school early each day. It was to the point that when David fell down on the rough gravel surface outside of the schoolyard, that Amy was a little bit happy and hoped that maybe now her knees would be taken into consideration. What made matters worse was that David's father was a writer of some repute, and he'd won a fairly prestigious award for a book that he'd written. And the town organized a party to celebrate his literary feat. And this was too much for Amy, who suddenly refused to go on play dates with David, owing to her embarrassment of her family's genetics regarding the lower half of their body. And those were the big ones. Those were the big misunderstandings. There was one other time where David was adamant that there was a line in the Bible about Jesus marrying Joseph because he'd heard it so many times. But even through all those misunderstandings, they kept in touch and kept paying attention to each other, and Amy was very glad to get that postcard.
There are roses under our noses. There are tulips under our noses. There's a dandelion in this heart of mine, and its spores will float through Sploresville. Oh, Sploresville, so sublime. Let's find out the ways of space and time. When we learn, we shall return to Sploresville, so sublime.